because that's where you are, but I'm still
Oh,
trying to.
that's fine. Yeah.
Is there like a website that'll tell us about embargoes? Is there like an embargo website, or do you just have to go to
No.
the source and just
No,
ask them?
that just comes from the publicist, and that's
Yeah.
usually internal. So usually what happens is when they send you a screening invite,
Yeah.
a screening junket invite, they'll say the embargo is, blah, 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 please hold all social media reactions, or sometimes they'll say social media reactions are fine, but please refrain from, releasing full reviews or whatever until that time.
Right. I learned about embargoes the hard way. Before I got my press pass, a couple of press passes, I remember I was at a screening, but it wasn't like a VIP or a press screening invitation. It was just a to the public, a regular pass. I had to wait in line, things like that. But and I forgot what movie it was. I quickly got on my phone and I posted, "Oh, I love this movie. It was great, and the review is coming later today." And as I was walking, I did that in the theater when the credits were rolling. And as I was walking out, I heard one of the I guess the staff that was in charge of the screen, the publicist that was in charge of the screening. I overheard her talking like, "Who the hell is T3 Medias? What is this?" And I go, "That's me." And then she told me, I learned about what an embargo was.
Yeah, there are a couple of I've seen a couple of like younger or new journalists learn that the hard way when they just post stuff and you're like, no, like there's a reason why we haven't been posting. But yeah, they're usually a little bit more lenient with like social media reactions because they want to build a little bit of hype, but the reviews usually come out the week of the week that the movie's released.
Right.
Sometimes for like good movies they really want to hype up, it'll be the week before, and then if the movie is not great, they'll usually release it just a couple days or lift the embargo a couple days before it releases.
Yeah. That embargo lifting like the day before or 2 days before. Sometimes it's not a good sign.
Never a good sign. Yeah, it's never a good sign.
Like, what was the last movie that's the exact same thing? I used to know about it off the top of my head. It was one movie where I think it was Venom, one of the movies that the embargo lifted a few days before the release, but it still was very successful.
It's going to be interesting. I'm screening Aladdin tomorrow, and so the embargo's lifting pretty late. So I'll be interested to see. Or sorry, not tomorrow, Saturday. Okay. I'll be interested to see.
Because the movie comes out on the 24th, right?
Yeah, the 26th. What next? It's next.
Yeah, right. The 26th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the embargo lifts on.
Like, I want to say next Tuesday or Wednesday. Tuesday's not that bad. If it's lifting, like I can't remember off the top of my head. Tuesday's pretty normal. The week of release. If it's like Wednesday or Thursday, that's pretty bad.
Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday at 8 o'clock. That's the sign. I'm like, ooh, I don't know. But if if I don't want to keep you too late, and I'm gonna I guess I can run through the interview part of it because I wanted to get to know a little bit about you and what you do, and then after I learn everything about is it Adam tickets and whatnot, then I'll start begging for intern work and officially becoming your protege and those things like that. I'll definitely start smoozing. But so first thing I wanted to ask if I'm even saying the name right, it's Alisha, is it Grauso?
Yeah, Alisha Grauso. Yeah.
Awesome.
You actually got it.
I never get names right. I asked my fiance.
Nobody gets that right, like ever.
I said, I showed her my phone. I said, "How would you say this name? Is it Grauso?" He said, "Yeah, I think so." I was like, "All right, let me roll the dice." She's probably gonna correct me.
You're actually real close, so yeah, I'm impressed.
So I wanted to know. I guess let's see. Let me get my lining of question, because I feel like I had a bunch of questions that I wanted to ask, but then I saw some of your tweets.
So my tweets. I'm down to talk about anything. Those are the things that were just irking me today.
Let me start with the fun stuff. So we found out who the new Batman was, and I saw you commented on that.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that I'm glad actually that you're. It seems like you're on the side of don't just judge this man by one franchise. You actually look at the body of work.
I'm a fan of. I get that fans are really proprietary about certain characters, but every single time, I mean, every single time this happens, those same fans usually end up eating their words, especially with Batman.
Heath Ledger.
And my thing is, I understand that you feel really protective of this character, but there's a whole process. It's not like they just saw 10 actors and went, that guy. It's not like this took a couple of weeks to cast. Like, casting takes months and months and months, and they see dozens, if not hundreds, of actors for this role, or for these roles. So, you know, trust that the casting director has done something right or saw something in him. Well, now it's rumored that it's not a done deal. It's between Pattinson and Nicholas Hoult, and I love both of them as actors, but I prefer Pattinson in this role. But you know, trust that the casting director had a reason for casting this specific actor and this specific role with this specific director, and that the director also had a hand in it and a say in who got cast. So I love Robert Pattinson. I think anybody that's still dismissing him as that Twilight guy is showing their entire ass of not knowing anything about his, like, oh, cool, well, guess what? The last Twilight was 7 years ago. So he's done a lot more since then.
I think that's exactly what, like, people on that mainstream mindset is thinking. Like, this guy hasn't done anything since Twilight. Like, you really didn't even just bother to go to his IMDb page or anything, really? And you're right, you're just sewing their asses on that one.
Yeah, like, I'm not expecting to have seen Good Time or The Rover or Lost City of Z or High Life or anything. I'm not saying they had to have seen his work, but understand that he didn't just disappear for 7 years. Like, he's been working, and so there's probably a whole filmography that you haven't seen.
Right,
at
like
least
independent films, right?
Yeah, or at least just acknowledge that there's a reason why he was cast. So
exactly.
I don't know. I'm also just really over fans and fanboys just getting mad about things before they've even seen like a second of anything.
It's like the moment a story just drops, or if it's supposed to be like a feel good moment, it's like some troll just gets activated somewhere. Oh, it's a good news story out there. It's time to destroy. Like, it's just weird nowadays.
And there are some fans that are they're never going to be happy. Like, they're just there's a core group of fanboys that will never be happy with any casting ever. Like, for superheroes, it just is what it is. So you kind of just ignore them, but at least with this, I'm kind of like, you know what, guys, like, I'm not here for your Twilight takes, because that was 7 years ago. So
there's been more in life than just Twilight.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta admit, I wasn't one of the fans of Twilight, even though I saw them all. It was a series that, just like the Harry Potter thing, I felt like it wasn't for me at the beginning, and then the third one or the fourth. I don't know which one it was with Harry Potter, or with I think it was the third one with Harry Potter. But with Twilight, it was like, okay, this is revving up, and I remember by the end, I was a fan of it. I liked it, and when I started hearing that he was acting in and these other like you said, I have not seen any of the other films. I've seen him work in I can't remember what other movie. I know I've seen him in another film after Twilight. I just can't remember. I couldn't tell you which one it is, to be honest. But I remember hearing from critics that I respect and I follow, not even the ones that I don't agree with all the time, saying the same thing. This man can act, and do not take him as a joke. Like, and I started hearing nothing but positive things about it. So when his name came up for a possibility of Batman, even though I haven't seen like the movies that you just listed, I remembered in the back of my head that like, just like you said, there's a reason why the director and casting looked at him and taking him seriously. It's because he's proven that he's not a joke, or that he's not just some Twilight or whatever, if that's even an insult. I mean, he even did a good job in that.
I think it's a real testament to an actor too, if they can get you to still love their performance in a movie you didn't like. Like I just a couple weeks ago, or maybe like a month or two ago, I screened High Life. But Claire Denis, she's a fantastic director, but she's not for me. She's very, very French. And it's a very French movie, and that's not my bag. And so I watched the movie, and there were things I could appreciate in it, but overall, I was like, I really think I hated this movie. Yeah, I hated this movie, but I loved him. Like he was in the movie. I just didn't like what was happening around him, but it was fantastic. Like he was
was it the directing, or was it just the story of it, or the whole
story? It's really hard to explain. All I can explain it was just saying it's very, very French. It's very slow burn, which I'm fine with slow burns, but this got real. It's weird. I'm fine with slow burns. I'm fine with surreal. I'm fine with, it was just it just wasn't for me.
But from all that, you could still say this performance from this person or that person was phenomenal. I mean, and that you're right. It's a testament of his skill. If in a movie that you were like, oh, I'm not feeling, and you can still say, but that performance.
Yeah.
That's just true. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why he was picked. So I'm excited to see it. I'm going to give it a chance. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start with that one, because looking at your your background on and your knowledge of film, like you are legit, like you are a geek. You know these things. Like this is your world. Like where did it all begin for you? Like when you were a comic book collector, or what was it? What do you say?
So yeah, I mean, it's weird. I've always been, I guess, drawn to like geekier things. Like when I was a kid, I loved like the Ghostbusters movies and the animated TV show, and like Gargoyles, and I was always playing with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, my little action figures. But I actually grew up, and then I always loved like Spider-Man all through like my childhood, and my first serious boyfriend in high school, he was a huge Spider-Man fanatic, so I read some I got into comic books in high school. And then the Spider-Man movies came out when I was in college. But I grew away from like some like nerdy stuff. My background was actually I have my master's in lit. My master's in English lit that was my background, and then I was I used it for marketing and also to be a instructor at a community college for a while. But in my lessons, I always like incorporated pop culture and like nerdy and like geek culture and stuff into my lessons to make it more relatable to modern day students. And then I fell backward into working for a website called Movie Pilot, which no longer exists. But I was friends with the original editor-in-chief, and he reached out to me, and this is back in 2012, and he was like, hey, would you want to write for me about movies and pop culture? And I was like, sure, like I'll help you out. Yeah, no problem. I don't really know much about that. And he's like, no, you're a huge movie fan, and you know how to criticize things because you have an entire background in academia, and you know how to write, and you know how to teach how to write. He's like, you have all the ingredients. You'll learn the industry as you go. And so I said, sure, I can start freelancing for you. And then he said, well, the catch is you have to move to Berlin because that's where the original office for this outlet was. And I went,
oh, wow.
Oh, okay. So I moved to Berlin and freelance for a while. We got like my visa stuff in order, and then went to Berlin. And then maybe a couple months after I moved to Berlin, he got let go. And so it was like, congratulations, you're the new editor-in-chief. I was like,
oh, you're just thrown in the fire, right?
Yeah, so I had, in some ways, it was a blessing and a curse that I was kind of incubated in Berlin, because I wasn't thrown like right into Los Angeles or New York, but Los Angeles right away with only 7 months experience under my belt. But so I was kind of allowed to figure it out as I went and make mistakes. But I helped build Movie Pilot up, and I helped build their whole like contributor network and editorial platform and everything up. And then I moved back to LA in 2014 and continued to build there and everything. And I was with them through the end of 2017. So I was with them for almost 6 years. And then during that time, I started freelancing for other sites, and just got to know more about the industry and how it works, and took a deep dive in. And then I ended up freelancing last year, and then I joined the team at Atom Tickets. Atom Tickets it's a movie. It's like Fandango, but better. It's more fun. It's more social. It's easier. It's a movie ticketing app, and you can invite your friends. You can order concessions. But they decided that they wanted to launch their own content platform. So they were like, we have people buying movies. We need stuff, news and reviews about movies, and editorials, and cool content, and really smart writing, and videos and everything. And so they brought me on board to build all of that from scratch.
Is that when I saw the Geekdom? Was that the platform?
No,
Am I thinking about something else?
Sorry, was that?
Or am I thinking about something? I'm sorry, am I cutting? I said the Geekdom. Is that that's not related to?
No,
that's the podcast, right?
That was, I don't remember what that was. That was a podcast. Oh, Atomic Geekdom. Yeah, that was a podcast I guested on like ages and ages and ages ago.
Oh, yeah. When I saw Atomic, I just.
Oh yeah, no. That was a podcast I did ages ago. So no, Atom Tickets, ATOM Tickets. Okay. So I'm the editorial lead, and I run all of their content, and I'm helping to build it from the ground up. And I have a team of really good, dedicated freelancers right now that contribute work and everything. So I do everything from assigning stories and taking pitches and working with them and editing and publishing to, keeping an eye on the numbers and data and number crunching, to working with our sales and marketing teams to do campaigns with studio stuff. So it's a little bit of everything that I do.
Oh, wow. And so I remember when I was looking like their history up and everything, I remember I said something that I thought was just going to be the deal breaker. And you were going to be like, no, Chris, we're not going to do this interview now. Because I said, I would use the word blogger. I remember you responded back like, do not call me a blogger. I'm really sorry. Is there a history there?
The problem is that there's a shift happening right now in entertainment journalism, and you have kind of your super high level, like people who work for the trades, your Variety, your Hollywood Reporter, or Deadline, whatever.
Your journalists, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have a lot of other journalists who have been doing this for years or professionally, and they've really, or film critics who have really taken the time to learn the craft, learn how the industry works, understand the art of filmmaking, understand journalism 101, things like copyright law and embargoes, and kind of journalistic integrity, fact checking things, not throwing just random rumors out there. But then the last maybe like 5 to 10 years or so, you've really had this kind of explosion, this proliferation of fans that have just started blogs and been like, I'm a film critic now, or I'm a movie blogger, or I'm an entertainment journalist. And that's great. That passion's great. Problem is, and you can get some really good content out of that and some really smart, insightful things. The problem is that too many of them just rely on, they're like the definition.
They don't really dig, and they just.
Yeah, they're the definition.
A lot of them have agendas.
Yeah, they're the definition of that's not how any of this works. Like, well, and they'll write a story, and it's like, none of this is factually accurate. Like, that's not how casting works, or that's not how a movie set works. And so, so there's kind of been a lack of, I guess, like integrity and like fact checking, learning how the industry and how like the movie making process actually works, or the casting process, or learning how the things that they're writing about work, understanding how to really critique a movie as opposed to just being like coming in with an agenda or surface knowledge. So bloggers kind of become a little bit of a dirty word, only because it's almost like kind of how fanboys become a little bit of a dirty word, because there's a lot of different levels when it comes to film criticism and entertainment journalism, unfortunately, most readers and most fans, a lot of them will just kind of lump them all in the same
group.
Group. Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny you mentioned that too, because just this morning, I remember I woke up around, I don't know how early it was, and I realized that somebody on this channel commented on a video where it's a video that's getting a lot of traction, more than I thought it would. It's where I speak on another YouTuber, I won't mention him, who has an agenda and just a real, for lack of a better word, hard on for Brie Larson. It's just over and over and over and over again.
One of those,
one of those, right?
Yeah,
and so I said in my video, I said I was talking with a friend of mine, just like we're talking right now, and it just came up organically, and I said, oh wow, you've never heard of this whole movement against her and whatnot, and I said, this is the one and only time I'll ever bring this person up, and I talked about it a little bit, and I didn't think anything of it, but to this day, and that was a couple of months ago, and to this day, I'm still this morning I got a comment from a person who used the word fanboy, and I was thinking, I'm okay, is this another supporter of theirs that's trying to attack me? And because I thought it was sarcasm. You know how they say you can't really tell if a person's joking or being sarcastic of their intent over on the internet. So the first thing they said was, it's good to see that a fanboy is of those movies or that actress is coming to her defense. And at first I was thinking, is this person being sarcastic, calling me a fanboy like that?
Yeah.
But I didn't go there with it. The first thing that I was gonna type back, I erased.
Yeah.
And then I tried to give the benefit of the doubt. I said, maybe there's just some kind of, maybe they're not using it as an insult. So I didn't comment on that. I just said thank you because she was supporting me on what I was saying against the whole trolling thing. And it turns out, no, this person wasn't using fanboy as as an insult and whatnot. She was being genuine and whatnot. It was funny. It was two things rolled up. I thought I was being attacked as being called a fanboy. I thought I was being trolled it was funny, but it was at that moment my guard went up and I could have just gone down this whole rabbit hole, and that's not even what it was. So you're right. This whole clash with the journalists and these bloggers who just want clicks. I remember hearing about that years ago. And how do you think do you think it's getting worse, or is it tapered off a little bit, or you think it's getting worse?
I think it's getting worse because there's one, I mean, it's hard to say. It's becoming maybe more extreme in certain cases because there are some sites that, I mean, I'm pretty liberal in my politics. I'm very progressive, but I'm not like so far left that I can stand the sites that are just snarky and crapping all everything just because it casts a white dude. Or I've started seeing a lot of that with Robert Pattinson, and I'm like, you know what? Be disappointed that Batman. I understand you're disappointed that Batman, it's a missed opportunity to cast a person of color, but don't crap on Robert Pattinson himself for this. It's just. But there's also far more sites, I think, that there's one site in particular. I'm not going to name the name of it because I don't care about myself personally. I do care about you not getting crap for it. But there's one site that writes about comic book news, and it has a hardcore, alt-right agenda. It was one of the sites that was hardcore going after Brie Larson, and basically is straight up it'll just post lies. It posted an article before Captain Marvel saying that Disney was paying theaters to buy out
the theaters to boost sales.
Yeah, to boost sales and things like that. That's not. Nope, that's not how.
Disney just spent what, $70 billion buying Fox, and they're gonna waste money on
or Disney, or this movie's gonna be Disney's worried about this movie, or things like even when it started, you know, was breaking records, it was like, oh, this movie's going to slow down soon. These numbers aren't real. And so it's just, it's one of those sites that it's super misogynist, it's super racist, and mostly misogynist, but super racist. It's very tied to like Comicsgate. It's just a mess. And so you also have sites like that too, where people that pay attention, they know that site's a joke, and it has been. But somebody that doesn't know better sees that cross their timeline, and they read it, and they think it's a legitimate news site because it has a logo and it has a Twitter account. Right. And so, you know, I think that's the problem, is that everybody has access now, and so anything has, so many sites and so many people have the veneer of being experts and authorities when they don't, you know. So I think that's the real problem with being able to discern what's quality content and what's not.
I totally agree. It gets to a point where I'm okay if you for just I don't want to just stay on Brie Larson, but she's just the example. I guess it's one of the latest ones. I can understand if you heard what she said and it made you feel that, you know, because a lot of times in other situations we're being taught it's not what you meant, it's how the other person takes it. Because if it was we're in an office setting, and if I make a joke, if me and you are co-workers and I make a joke, even though I don't feel like I'm harassing you, if that's how you're taking it, I have to take that seriously, and because HR will. And so,
we literally just had our like sexual harassment training this week, so yes.
Or when they found out you're going to be talking to me, it's like, okay, you have to be careful. Chris is going to say something crazy.
Yeah.
But I know that, and then but when you see the situation with Brie Larson where she was trying to make a point. Mm-hmm. And people are just, even if they feel like what she was saying was, you know, bad or whatever, maybe. But the second Brie Larson explained herself and said, you know, because this is not a situation where we're in the office and she made a sexual joke or anything like that. You know, this is her feelings about inclusion and media. So when she said, officially, no, this is I wasn't talking about taking seats away from these outlets, just including, you know, more. That should have been the end of it. But what happened after that? It was everybody just kept putting more words in her mouth, and she this is what she really meant, and you can't even take the person's word anymore, because people have already figured out that if I bash on this subject some more, I'm going to get clicks, so it doesn't matter. Brie Larson could cure all the diseases, and it won't matter.
And there's a type of man out there that, let's be honest, it doesn't matter what she said. They will never accept it coming from an outspoken, confident, no nonsense woman. Like Brie Larson she doesn't mollycoddle people when she talks. She says it like it is, and if you don't like it, tough. She doesn't care.
And that's what a lot of people just can't handle.
It, you know, and it's not a big deal, but she does it. And so there's a certain type of man and woman, because there is internalized misogyny as well. You know, so mostly men, but plenty of women who will see that and say, oh, she's not ladylike, oh, she's not classy, oh, she's not this, oh, she's not that, and they'll just, you know, use that as an excuse to tear her down.
I'm so surprised. And the person that I was speaking of, the other YouTuber is a woman, and it wasn't that I was shocked. That it was. I don't believe that just because a woman is a woman that another woman should. I'm sorry.
Blonde hair.
Red.
Interesting. We'll have to talk. We'll have to talk offline.
We'll go offline. I promise. Yeah. I said on this channel that I won't bring her up anymore unless she does something just totally off the wall or something, or brings me up. A funny thing, if you could probably look it up on my Twitter. Even when I was commenting on what this person was doing, I still complimented her. I said, no, her channel does, you know, when she speaks about something that she's very passionate about, you can tell she's a fan and she's really passionate about it. So I give her respect, and I made a lot of compliments. But even though when I tweeted about it, I said, I feel like this person is obsessed. The second she saw her name, I was instantly blocked. I'm like, Okay, now who needs a safe space?
Yeah.
But we'll talk offline.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's funny. So all right, I'm gonna transition off this. Listen, I don't want to spend the whole night on trolls because I can go on and on about it. But I saw something else funny on your I think on your are you a Game of Thrones fan?
I was.
You are? Are you one of the ones who feels like this season is letting them down?
Yeah, I
Let's
am.
talk about it.
Okay, so here's the thing. I have historically been a an advocate of letting things play out to the end, because especially if it's episodic. Like a movie's one thing, but things like a TV series or even a comic book series, like when Nick Spencer had the whole Hydra cap, Captain America run where Captain America was the Hydra, but it was, and that first issue with him, with that now infamous panel of him saying "Hail Hydra,"
Hail Hydra, yeah.
fans lost it. He was getting death threats. First off, I don't care how badly a writer or director screws up what you think is your property, you never send a death threat. Like, that's
Right.
psychotic.
You know what that reminded me of? Remember when Superman was changed into that electrical character and people lost their minds?
So
Oh my God.
So I argued, I said, guys, like, it's a comic book. Like, this is the first issue. There's a whole arc that they have built out. Like, it's episodic storytelling. Maybe give it more than like 20 pages before you lose your shit.
Or you like pitchforks.
Pitchforks and torches. Yeah. So I'm generally a big advocate of, maybe this season isn't going the way you want it or whatever, but like, let it play out to the end and then judge. I think, considering we have one episode left, and because you can compare the quality of this season to previous seasons, I think I'm safe in saying, and also the fact that it's been reported that Benioff and Weiss were offered more episodes, and they were like, "No, we're good. We're ready to do other things." The corner cutting is becoming really apparent, and through most of Game of Thrones, especially when they were still on books, but even for a while after they went off book, the plot serviced the characters. And this season, now the characters are serving the plot. And that's never the way it should be. So this was a huge, and I'm also not a person that, I don't ever bash something if it doesn't turn out the way I thought it would, or if it doesn't end the way I thought it would.
Right.
If it's still well done, because I recognize, I'm like, okay, I don't really go into things with expectations about how something's going to end or what I want to see, because I know that that's
setting chance you might not going to see that.
Yeah, that's setting myself up for disappointment. So, right. And even if I do see something that I'm like, oh, that's not how I thought it was going to go, or not what I wanted, if it's done well, I can appreciate it. So for me, it's not a criticism that, because I'm getting really upset with journalists, like, TV journalists and critics I see saying fans are mad because the season's not ending how they want it to. It's like, no. It's not where it's going. It's how it's getting there. And that's the problem, because the storylines in seasons past were so intricate, and they were given time to breathe and develop, and there was so much character development that you bought it. I would buy Dany's turn as Mad Queen. They have planted plenty of seeds about her being cruel and vindictive and vicious. I've never liked Dany. I have not liked her character from the first season. Never. Wow. I've never liked her character. I have been like the only person, like at one point I was the only person at my old outlet at Movie Pilot that like openly disliked her, and my entire, like, all my other coworkers were like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? She's amazing. She has dragons. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Like, she's an idiot. So I never liked her. And this is me saying this as a staunch, like, Dany hater, that I'm sorry, like, we need more than 30 seconds of her sitting on top of her dragon looking like a psychopath for me to believe, like, for that complete 180 heel turn to feel earned. At least give us a couple of episodes watching her where we can see her kind of unravel under the strain, as opposed to, we had there was like that one scene where she's leaning against the window and talks to Tyrion, and then she has that one meeting with John, where he's like, I don't want to make out with you anymore. And then she's like, fine, I'm just going to burn everything, which still doesn't make sense because the scene after that, she was like, we'll show mercy, and then cut to King's Landing and she's torching everything. So it's just stuff like character.
Well, maybe John should have made out with her. Wow.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't. After she tried, if I were John and she tried to tell me what I can and can't tell people or about my own personal history, I've been like, no, we're not.
That you're right. That was, as much as I love, I like this season. I mean, I wasn't invested in like the books or anything that much. So, I mean, I never read them, so I only have the TV shows to go by. But I got to admit, that was the part that was happening that even though I'm a fan of Khaleesi, but when she told John, don't tell your own family. No, I was like, no, what are you talking about? I couldn't co-sign on that. Yeah. So I'm on board with you.
I love the second episode of the season was, I think, one of the best episodes we've ever seen in Game of Thrones. It was all character development, or like, not necessarily character development, it was character interactions. It was almost pure fan service with seeing these kind of interactions. We wanted to see like Arya and the Hound meeting up again, and
was that the one where
A Knight of Seven Kingdoms,
where she was knighted and
Knight of Seven Kingdoms.
That was the best.
That was one of the best episodes. That was the best episode, not just this season, but in many seasons. And I think that's the thing that a lot of these writers that are kind of like, now the fan petition to have the last season remade is ridiculous, and those fans are stupid. But for me, why, like, one of my friends who, like, he doesn't really watch Game of Thrones, he's like, you're really mad about this, like, days later. He's like, that's not really, you're pretty chill about things, like, you accept things, and he's like, you're still really mad. I'm like, I am, because I'm mad at the wasted potential, because this was arguably one of the greatest shows in television history, and they mailed it in. The last season, they just mailed it in because they just didn't care anymore, and that lets down the cast, none of which are happy about the season. If you watch interviews, they're not happy at all. It lets down the crew. It's a shame, because the crappy writing has overshadowed some of the beautiful cinematography and direction and the scoring and the acting from this season, all of which have, quite a few episodes or scenes or whatever have been phenomenal on a number of levels if it weren't for the writing. So I feel like the two of them have let down a lot of people, and I think it's a frustration because it's born of knowing what the show was and how it could have ended.
Right.
And it could end in the same way, but it's just how it's getting there. It could have been done so much better and with more care and attention to it, rather than just kind of trying to hurry it up and, cut corners like it has been this season.
How crazy was, like, the whole situation with the Starbucks cup, which would have just been just a little, they made a mistake, a little laugh situation, but having that happen after an episode where people literally could not see what was going on in one of the biggest battles they've ever had on this series. It just, like, I agree. It goes into the quality that or lack thereof that's been given, in the season. Like I said, I still enjoy what they're doing, only because I couldn't write any better than what they've been giving us. But I can see where some of the anger is coming from. I mean, I feel like that whole they made that into a whole Starbucks cup gate kind of a situation.
Yeah, that which was, I mean,
it was silly.
That happens all the time.
Yes.
It happens all the time.
You know how many wristwatches I see in the Middle Ages?
Wristwatches, or there was a car in Lord of the Rings. Like, there's stuff all the time.
I missed that. Did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's when they're losing the chair.
I'm gonna have to Google that.
That stuff happens all the time, and it's not a big deal. Like, it doesn't really, if it detracts, if you even notice it in the moment, and it detracts from the story around it, then they have much bigger problems than that little continuity
that little
error.
thing. Exactly. Yeah. It took, like, because I would have to say 99.9% of people didn't even notice it, but that 1.1%, the person that does, and then they have access to the internet. I feel like it was one of those things that maybe a couple of seasons ago just would have been laughed off. But with the fact that this is the final season and the whole lighting and you're rushing and all this other things everybody's complaining about, it's like, this is Starbucks gate. How much did Starbucks pay you to ruin my show or something?
Yeah. My friends and I all laughed. We're like, man, there's a script supervisor. We're like, there's a scripty somewhere right now that's livid, because I can guarantee they noticed it and they said that needs to go, and the editor was like, nobody will notice, or the editor missed it, and so now there's a script supervisor that got blamed for it that's livid because they probably saw it, and then but they were like, well, too late now, nobody will notice, and then it blew up. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine said, oh, somebody got fired. I'm like, what are you talking about? The show wrapped.
Yeah, they got fired. Yeah, the show's done. It's done.
Who got fired? This got wrapped like months ago.
I will say I do have to own, speaking of the Game of Thrones showrunners, I have to acknowledge that I was wrong a year ago or whenever it was, when they announced that they were going to do that Confederate series. What if the South had won the Civil War?
Oh, I heard about that.
And there was a huge internet uproar, and it immediately got pulled, and they're like, never mind, we're not going to do this anymore. And I remember the time I was like, I understand the sentiment, but I'm really hesitant about, again, I'm more a proponent of, let something play out, at least let us see before we pass judgment. And the internet outrage was so much that it got canceled before it even began. I'm like, maybe this could be a really poignant show that explores race relations, or kind of a Man in the High Castle sort of situation, where it's a really well done story, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm like, it doesn't have to be, something can be racial and explore that without being racist. And I was like, let's just, I was thinking, like, let's give them a chance. And I wasn't really like upset when it got canceled, but I was also a little bit like, I don't know how I feel about like fans having that much power, to kill something before it begins. But in the last few seasons, having watched Game of Thrones and seeing how women and people of color are treated by the pair of them, I'm like, you know what? I take it back. Like, that was my white privilege talking, and my kind of ignorance and looking at it from that point of view. And now that I've kind of looked back at Game of Thrones, I'm like, yep, you know what? I don't. These aren't the dudes to handle a very nuanced
subject like that
about the South winning the Civil War. Like, you know what? Y'all are right. Good call. Getting that cold.
Because I mean, just the subject matter alone is not. It's not like it was going. I don't know what some people were like. For example, I guess let's say if it was put in the hands of a creative team that you trusted. It's not like when Roots came out. It's not like when Roots came out that slavery was going to come back again. So we as a country, people got to see that, and I feel like it did a lot of good for race relations, and because I don't think that people should treat things like, okay, this was a black eye on this on the history of this and that and the other, so we should pretend like it doesn't exist. Let's not burn books and erase history, because I feel like we're gonna, what's that saying about if you don't learn from history, you're gonna be doomed to repeat it. So I wasn't upset that show was being developed, but I'm just like you. I was like, okay, but how is this going to play out? How is this? So I was curious on how it was going to be done. So if I would have saw the first episode and I would have went, nope, this isn't for me, then that's what I was waiting for. But you're not the first person that I've heard say that about that creative team, that these aren't probably the guys that would have been the best.
If Jordan Peele handled it, if Ava DuVernay handled it, I'm like, cool, I'm in. I think they'll do an amazing job with it. two dudes that basically reduced all the brown people in Game of Thrones to like slaves, or the one of color basically just got beheaded.
Mm.
The two dudes that wrote the line for Sansa Stark a couple episodes ago, where she basically thanks her rapists for making her stronger. It was like, ooh, that's what.
Like, yeah, that track record.
I was like, yeah, you know what, and like, yeah. So over like the last 2 seasons, I've been like, you know what, I take it back. I think we can safely say that just seeing the way they handle these storylines, I do not have faith in them. They would have handled the storylines of Confederate with the nuance and the understanding and awareness that they would have needed to.
You're probably right. Yeah, no, you're probably right. It's funny how you brought up maybe in the hands of like of a Jordan Peele or something like that. And I know he's doing what
he's doing Twilight
right on. And you also mentioned earlier when you said when you were growing up, you watched Gargoyles. That I'm sure you heard that he was interested in doing that as well. Do you think that a Gargoyles movie? Are we ready? Is it too little? Has it been too long? Would a Gargoyles movie even work?
I'd love to kind of see a darker, more adult live action version of Gargoyles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think you could do some real cool stuff with that. Like, I'd be down to see it. I'd be in.
I think that cartoon had so much. It was so rich in in actual history, in mythology. It tackled way more than I thought a Disney afternoon cartoon.
It was way more adult. If you go back and watch it, like, oh, I was getting some life lessons when I watched this show. Like, there was depth to it.
And it's funny. I can talk to other Gargoyle fans, and even ones who really watched it, they don't remember. And I have to remind them. I'm like, guys, you got to remember, this was a Disney afternoon cartoon where a gargoyle, who was our hero named Goliath, was in love with. And if they do make a movie about this, sorry for the spoilers, but you should have watched the cartoon. It falls in love with a half black, half Native American woman who was a badass.
Yeah.
And I mean, just right there alone, it was way ahead of its time than I thought any Disney cartoon should have been. And the things that they tackle, magic, science fiction, and actual history, the Shakespeare stuff alone, was what I was a fan of.
It's like, it has layers.
A lot of layers.
Yeah.
That I got really plump on that cake. I love them. I love that cartoon.
I'd love to see like a darker version. I love that stuff. I love stuff that taps into literature and even like theology. Like, I personally am not religious, but I appreciate theology, and I'm fascinated by mythology, and I'm fascinated by angels and demons, and that I actually Scott Derrickson and I, he's the director of Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange 2, and he had been trying for a while to make to do an adaptation of Paradise Lost.
Okay.
And he just a couple months ago, like, I think he retweeted it, like he shared it a while ago, but he retweeted it, the concept art of like the fallen angels, like Lucifer and the fallen angels from that, and I was like, oh man, I really want to see this movie. So like, I'd love to see something like that, like a director that could take he actually might be a good director for it, like for a Gargoyles movie, like I'd love to see a director that has a lot of kind of philosophical and literary and kind of all of that knowledge and background. I can put layers into a live action, like a darker, more adult version of Gargoyles. That I think that could be a really cool movie.
I feel like as long as the one character on the Gargoyles movie that I would be most excited about, and it would have to be a director. Now, if you say that your friend is the type of person that could handle this, the Demona character, my favorite villain, one of my favorite villains probably of all time, throughout any series. If that character is done right, she's like my Magneto of the Gargoyle world. Not Xanatos. People who think that the rich guy, now he's Lex Luthor a little bit, but But Demona, she was so
Yeah.
deep, and talk about layers. And like, I mean, she just, I'm just excited about what a person could do with that character. And I'm thinking, the as a what's an actress that I think could really kick butt with Demona? If it was Jordan Peele that did it, I guess.
Jordan Peele would be phenomenal. I mean, if he does end up doing it, like I'm so here for that, because talk about a dude that can do layers upon layers in his stuff. Like yeah.
What actress do you think could rock out the Demona character? Do you think it necessarily has to be or should be a person of color, or do you think it wouldn't even matter?
I mean, I'd like to see, I'd love to see more diversity in movies, just because I feel like that reflects our world, even though I know we're talking about like a world where gargoyles and stuff come to life. But I'd love to see, man.
I'm curious how he would do it. Because I know the whole thing where he said that he wants to make movies where all the movies that he says he's going to produce from now on, I guess, is going to be more diverse.
Yeah.
So I would assume, when I heard gargoyles, I'm like, well, it's not just Black people or people of color in the movie. So, but I guess what he meant was, I guess, with starring roles, since we've seen these types of movies before. But so I guess it would still fit in like in his way of thinking. So the original voice. Oh, you mean for Demona?
Mm-hmm.
I could see her. Do you think he would? And what about from Us? Probably. I think he might. I think he might go that route. But I mean, we can speculate.
She was on my mind too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we could probably speculate for years to come on but will it happen? That's the question. With Disney, with Disney crushing it, I guess, in the box office with these Marvel movies and things like that. I don't know.
We might get a Disney Plus series.
Oh, I would love that. Maybe they will. I hope so. I don't know. So before I let you go, because I've already been given the wrap it up signal by my better half. See, in this house, I wear the pants, but she picks them out for me, so I know better than to.
Yeah. Oh, that should be.
So you don't even know Joy, and you're already on the side. I knew the conspiracy. I knew. But I just wanted to just to I guess in a nutshell, just to tell people what you're doing, what you're working on. Anything new or that are coming up that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any like big projects at the moment, but you can find all my work and all my amazing freelancers work on Atom Insider. It's atomtickets.com/movie news. You can find me on Twitter, where obviously, as you know, I am very loud and opinionated and freely share my thoughts and opinions. And I share a lot of the writing for my freelancers and my own writing when I can do it. So I'm actually really excited because the week after next, the end of May, I'm actually flying to New Orleans for Overlook Film Festival. So it's a horror movie film festival. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. And then the week after that, I'm going to Orlando for the Toy Story 4 junket and screening. So it's gonna be very busy in the next couple of weeks, but I'm real excited. So yeah.
Outstanding, fantastic, stupendous, and outrageous. I thought of another one. Boom! I know it only took me an hour.
You did.
But that's awesome, and I appreciate you taking the time. I really wanted to sit down with you ever since I found you and I became a fan of yours on Twitter. And you're right. And you know what? I'm gonna do a little editing, or maybe I'll call this the because this is something that I said we could talk about if you have time for it. But I didn't want to just put it up there on the title and then not mention it, because I saw that on your Twitter. Because I have a friend that lives in Georgia right now, and I asked her. I said, my friend Lynn. I said, Lynn, what the hell is going on up there? And I could feel her shaking her head on text messages like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. And I saw you speak your mind about the subject matter, the laws that are getting passed.
Yep.
From a group of people who say they want to take government out of everything, but when it comes to stuff like this, they want government all over it. Just blows my mind. I mean, what do you think is gonna come from this? Part of me feels like it's gonna be shot down, but a little bit of me is nervous about it.
Here's the thing. It was never about automatically passing into law. It was meant to be argued because they want to kick it up from court to court to court until it lands in front of the Supreme Court, where they're hoping, with a conservative majority now, especially with Kavanaugh sitting on the bench, who we clearly know he has zero respect for women,
will overturn Roe v.
Wade.
Right.
At this point, I am clinging to the hope that even the conservatives on the Supreme Court will pay attention to precedent and the fact that the majority of Americans support abortion in some form, that they won't overturn it. But in the meantime, you know, I'm really worried, and I think every day that I am in California,
right,
I can't imagine what it's like for women in those states right now. And Missouri just passed an 8-week abortion ban like today. So yeah, so it
baffles me. Growing up, I understood what people were saying, or if your mindset is pro, or if you're against. I mean, that's pretty much what it was. But it's more than just that. It's the fact that you have a group of people, and let's just be honest, we're just talking about guys who are casting this shadow, this fist, and just this strong arm of the law, whatever you want to call it, and just telling a group of people that they have to live their lives the way they see fit on an issue that they could never ever be affected by.
That's my thing. I feel like politicians now, congratulations, you got elected to the House or Senate or whatever. You have to pass a test, 2 tests. Mm-hmm. 1, you have to pass a women's reproductive health test, and if you fail that test, you don't get to be a politician, because you could one day pass laws about women's reproductive health with having zero understanding of how it works. And 2, I need you to, like, this is more for like senators or like maybe like House, like congressmen. They need to pass a test on how the internet and social media work, because one day you might have to question, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg, or I don't know, one of the, you know, executives of Google, and they're going to run circles around you because you have zero idea of how Facebook even works or what social media is. And congratulations, you're helping do nothing about Facebook ruining everything. Anyway, that's a whole other subject.
Right. Yeah. Like these are the politicians that don't even know what poking on Facebook is, but yet they're going to lead us into the future on reproduction and no, you're right. It's totally agree. Whether I if I was a person who was pro-life or pro-choice, it's just the fact that whenever I'm taking on any subject that is above my pay grade, my way of thinking, mm-hmm. or doesn't even affect me biologically at all, how am I going to be in control of something like that? And I cannot remember the woman's name. I think it was a congresswoman. This happened years ago, and I can't remember what state she represented, but it was brilliant, where a congresswoman tried to pass a law in her state saying, okay, if you're trying to say that life begins here, okay, I've heard studies that life begins even in the male body even before sex. Yeah. And she tried to pass a law that would make masturbating illegal.
Yeah.
And it was funny how bipartisan and how quick those guys wouldn't even bring it in a vote. It was like, oh, you're not gonna mess with my ability to my right to go in the dark room whenever the wife and kids aren't in the house. But
that's
something like this.
This isn't pro-life, it's anti-choice, because
exactly.
If you were pro-life, like the Alabama governor signed that bill into law and said it's because we protect the sanctity of all lives, and then the very next day she presided over execution of an inmate. So don't tell me you're pro-life when you're not including rape or incest. Like they even turned down like the rape and incest clause. So
that was the one thing I could not believe.
You're telling me that a little girl that gets raped has to carry that baby to term and deal with all of that horrific like mental and physical fallout. Don't tell me you care about life. You care about control. You care about controlling women, and you care about and taking their choice away. Like that's all this is. Because so
it blows my mind. Because even if you are pro-life, being under if the rule of law puts pro-choice above makes that illegal, you still have your rights to practice being pro-life.
There's a separation of state for a reason.
Exactly. It blows my mind how people say take government out of this and take government out of that, but when it's this thing that you really want, it's that hypocrisy of I want to take government out of everything except for the things that I practice.
What's also really scary is the clause that they're adding. I can't remember what state it is, but they want to add to make if you miscarry and they find out later it was an abortion, you can go to jail for that. And I'm like,
I know what you're talking about.
I was like, first off, there is no difference between how a miscarriage happens versus how an abortion happens, like taking the pill. It makes your body do the exact same things. You literally cannot tell the difference between the two of them. Two, do you know how often women miscarry? 1 out of every 4 women, or 1 out of every 4 pregnancies will miscarry. You're telling me that you honestly think, you who had no idea how pregnancy even works in the first place, Mr. Senator, you can determine who miscarried and who might have had an abortion? Okay, whatever.
It's not only that, just the fact that a woman who, whatever the situation is, maybe they were in a situation where they were assaulted and want to get an abortion, or just wanted to have a baby and had a miscarriage. So you were going to put this person in front of a jury, and I need you to explain yourself, young lady. What happened? What? And just make them relive all that. Like that.
Imagine the worst case scenario of a young girl who gets raped, then has a miscarriage, which can be traumatizing, or even somebody that, a married couple that wanted to have a child and had a miscarriage. That is painful. Like I hate the tired narrative of, abortions that, you have compassion because it's the hardest decision a woman can ever make. No, it's not. It's not the hardest decision a woman can ever make for many women. For some women, yes, the decision to abort is very hard and it's very, heartbreaking.
Right.
For many other women, it's not a hard choice at all. It's actually a very easy choice. But for people that do want a baby, a miscarriage can be really, really emotionally and mentally devastating. And so imagine going through that and dealing with that, which is already a subject that's so personal and hard to, talk about for some people and devastating, and then having to prove yourself to strangers that want to accuse you of doing it on purpose. And so these laws aren't just like this will end in death. Like the ectopic pregnancy, that whole thing, like ectopic pregnancies will kill women. And so these laws will end in deaths. Like, that is a fact. These laws will end in deaths. The states that have the strictest abortion bans already have the worst infant mortality rates in the nation. And
but yet they can't seem to put two and two together.
And not only does it just not make logical sense, it's cruel. It's inhumane to make women go through this, to make girls go through this, to make rape victims and, you know, incest victims go through this.
Aren't they saying something else, like if a person tries to go over state lines,
they get caught,
they can go to jail? What is this?
Yeah.
what is I feel like things you hear about this in the history books during World War II, things like that. I'm like, Georgia, you're gonna turn Georgia into a camp? What is this?
I remember I worked with this person she was dating a guy, and he, not seriously, but like we met at a party or a barbecue or whatever, and I said something about Handmaid's Tale. I was like, I can't really watch Handmaid's Tale, like it's too real for me. And he kind of stopped. He was like, oh, you're making a big deal about nothing, like that's so, like you're being so like dramatic or something like that, which I was like, okay, first off, you just met me, so not a good way getting around on my good side. But now I just wish I knew where that guy was, so I could just be like, I'm being dramatic. You think I'm being dramatic because I said Handmaid's Tale is way too close to real life or what could happen in real life? Like, do you really think I'm being dramatic now?
People don't realize that we're just one vote away. Hitler was voted in. I mean, people don't realize that that's where it starts. It starts with, you know, they use democracy, they get popular, they get voted in, and all of a sudden they start acting like a dictator. Is it happening right now? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be somebody else. Who knows? But that's how it starts.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. They come in acting like they're your friend, and they get in the, and then look what happens. It happens too much. I think these term limits. But you know, these politicians aren't ever going to vote themselves to have shorter term limits. They want to be life empowered for life. So I don't know how to really solve the problem at all. But it's just crazy out there right now. But you know, no, we're eye to eye on a lot of on most of these things. Definitely, I know that's a heavier subject, and I usually don't do politics and things like that. But at the same time, when I'm talking to the media, especially like the way we're doing it now, I just like this, whatever, just like to talk.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to talk about heavier stuff, you know? It's like, I know a lot of people are like, I don't like one of my friends, he was like, I don't really want to talk about what's happening because like it's kind of, you know, my Twitter brand's kind of, I was like, dude, F your brand. Like, honestly, like that's all. I get it, but like if you don't speak up now, like that's like shame on you. Like sometimes you have to break character, or sometimes you have to talk about the uncomfortable stuff, because the uncomfortable stuff is exactly what we need to talk about to be able to become more enlightened and get better. So I'm not really here for it anymore with the people that I know. They're like, I don't really follow politics, or I don't really follow that stuff, or I don't know, it's too depressing, I don't pay attention to it. I'm like, congratulations, you're part of the problem.
Right. So. Exactly. I mean, politics is proven that that's not the category where you can feel like you only can be involved when your side is winning or when you're up and stuff like that. No, you have to at least know what's going on, at least. I mean, you can be polite and not throw in your friends or your family's face every day, but you can be informed and not be a jerk.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well,
but you know, I agree with you on. But you're right. I feel like you gotta sometimes step out of your brand sometimes, and let people know where you stand. Step out of your brand and let people know where you stand.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you have that you had rhymes like that. I didn't know that you had bars like that. But I guess freestyling is one of your talents.
Yeah.
So I won't keep you up too late, but I want to say thank you for talking with me. And I really appreciate it. I'm glad that we finally got. It wasn't an excuse. I'm telling you, there was a lightning knocked out the internet, and it was so bad. I was so upset. I was like, oh my God, she thinks I'm one of these millennials that's like waiting for something more exciting or something.
No, I get it. So it happens. We just have been having, actually it rained here today, and sometimes the internet goes a little screwy, but it was fine today. So yeah.
But I knocked on wood, and I hope it's not the last time. I hope if you have time, if you ever have time to just talk with me again, I would love it. And
Yeah, sure.
so again, from I want because I'm gonna say Atomic again from Adam Tickets.
Yes, yeah.
Like I
You
say,
got it right.
not
Yeah.
just a hat rack. Sometimes, guys, I know a lot about a little, know about a lot of things. But I appreciate your time, Miss Alyssa. I'm gonna put the sound effect of clapping right here and just stop it, guys. Stop it. I'm just
Just a person, just
appreciate
one
you.
person. It's yeah.
She's just one person, half woman, half amazing. That's all.
Half women, half amazing, all yelly on Twitter.
So until next time, guys, I'm gonna sign off. Peace.
Right.
And let me.